Solo leveling Karma has just had a huge amount of new information revealed, so here is everything you need to know. So let's start off with what platforms the game is going to be releasing on and its actual release date, because Solo leveling Karma right now is going to be available for iOS and Android mobile devices, as well as PC, most likely through the Netmarble launcher. There's currently no pre-registration, beta, or anything like that currently, but when it comes to the game's release date, I did look into Netmarble's earnings results from the third quarter of 2025, and that's where I was able to see their lineup for the end of this year and also 2026, which did show that Solo leveling Karma will be currently releasing next year in 2026. Moving on to the most important thing, and that is going to be the gameplay, and when starting the game you get to choose from a selection of 5 different weapons that are daggers, which are commonly known as Moonshadow. You have the Orc's Broadsword, some brand new never seen before gauntlets, Black Falcon being the pistols, and finally the Ice Elf's bow. You can also test each weapon out and their combos and abilities, because they all do have their own regular attack combos as well as a special attack that does change with each weapon, because for example the bow does have a long charged press, whereas the guns, for example, is a quick use skill that makes you spin around doing damage. Then you also get access to dashing that will allow you to dodge enemy attacks, and you can even evolve and change this skill to be able to do stuff like damage or lay things on the floor of the stage you're playing in. But following that you can summon shadows, which is the icon right here, and the number you can summon seems to be at a limit of 3 right now, and then of course you have your ultimate, that is the top skill icon. When you are playing as Sung Jin-woo, you'll have the regular stuff like a health bar for you to keep track of the damage you're actually taking, but for the blue bar underneath it, this is actually your ultimate gauge bar that increases with your attacks and dealing damage, but once charged to 75 out of 100, that's when you can activate it to help deal lots of damage with Egress. When you want to start playing, you then go to the gate where you can select a dungeon to play, and from the showcase we got, there was 2 events, being event A and B, as well as a ranking challenge against Baron, and that is what I'm going to be talking about first. So you enter the stage where you can see how many of them you need to clear, with it being 18 in this example, and also a timer that starts with it tracking how long it takes you to beat the whole entire thing. Solo leveling Karma is obviously a roguelite, so once defeating your first lot of enemies, you can choose from a set of 3 different abilities that will provide various buffs based on your weapon of choice, that can then develop into upgrading many other things to do with Sung Jin-woo, and they even have their own rarities, meaning you can get even more powerful ones as you play. But even after that, a portal will appear for you to interact with that can let you pick from 2 different bonuses, and these can for example enhance your weapon with fire or help freeze your enemies with the power of frost. And of course you will have many other different choices as you play, such as strengthening your shadows or upgrading one of your current blessings. When you continue on playing, you will also receive objectives to do, as for example one of them you had to defeat all of the enemies within the given time limits, but when the notification did actually pop up, it showed a health potion underneath it, so I'm going to assume that if you finish the objective you'll receive like healing or a health increase. But that wasn't the only one, because another one was that a strong enemy had actually appeared, showing that there will be many different types of unique stages to play and not just the classic defeating enemies and that's it. Finally though, for the ranking challenge mode, there was a boss fight on the 5th stage, which I imagine will repeat until you get to the main boss being Baron, and fights like these will of course be way more challenging than the stages prior to it, but just like the rest, after defeating the boss you can obtain another lot of upgrades, and these ones don't actually have rarities, but I think they are pretty much just tailored around your current playstyle for Jinwoo. 2 other dungeons were available, being Cerberus and Vulcan, but at the time of recording this we could only see gameplay for one of them, and the way it worked was actually quite different to the previous one I just spoke about, because although it retains the roguelite mechanics of getting random blessings and upgrades for Sung Jin-woo, the method of actually getting them was a lot different. This is because you now get XP for Jinwoo to level him up by fighting and defeating what seems to be an endless wave of enemies that keep respawning, and with each level does bring a new random upgrade for him. And again, these all do have varying effects and abilities as well as rarities to all help make your Jinwoo much stronger. But the final thing I noticed from leveling up was the different icons next to your XP bar that changed, and it looks like it will show you what kind of upgrade you can expect to get next after leveling up. Another difference with this dungeon was that shadows for some reason aren't available for you to use in this stage, and I don't quite know why this might be. Maybe it's because there's already a lot of enemies on screen at once, so anything else might be too much for either mobile devices to handle or just overall gameplay quality. Bosses are again available for you to fight in this dungeon, and instead of beating stages, this measures your progress through defeating bosses instead, with there being 3 in total. And in order for you to spawn these bosses, you need to fill up the meter you can see here, and this is achieved by simply defeating the enemies around you, so whilst you're working on leveling up Jinwoo, you'll still be progressing towards facing your first boss. After you fill up the boss meter, all of the other enemies around you will then disappear, and the boss will spawn with its health bar actually replacing your own XP bar, and once you have defeated it, you'll go to carry on defeating waves of enemies until you reach the very final boss, which was the Cerberus boss in this case, but I imagine for the other dungeon it will be Vulcan. Then when the final boss has been defeated, the dungeon will of course end, giving you a rank based off of your performance. It will also tell you how many bosses you defeated, because sometimes you might fail and only defeat like 2 bosses, for example, as well as also it will tell you how fast you did it, and finally your amount of consecutive kills that you did get. Next up, I wanted to show and list off all of the other bosses that we know is in this game, because the showcase at G-Star only really had a few for us to see, and especially with gameplay, but we will definitely be getting way more bosses, because starting off we have the giant statue from the double dungeon. Baron of course is going to be a boss within the game. This also means that Kaiser will be a boss, as they are both linked together pretty much. The same then goes for Essel, Radiru and Vulcan, who are present in the game, but for some others we've seen from trailers are the likes of the Pursuing Deathstalker, Soul Shepherd Matus and the Eternal Flame Lizard. We further know that the Hobgoblin leader is a boss from the gameplay at the G-Star event, as well as from trailers. Oh yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but I did actually forget to mention as well, there's a pretty big spoiler for one of the very final villains in Solo Leveling, so just keep that in mind. But the final important bosses in the game are Cerberus, with maybe whatever this is that appears from the portal in the very first trailer we got for Solo Leveling Karma, and at last we have Antares, who we did actually get quite a good amount of gameplay from his boss fight, and even some very cool cutscenes as well. I guess this then perfectly lets me move on to talk about Solo Leveling Karma's actual story, and of course there's going to be pretty big spoilers for Solo Leveling. If you haven't read it all, or you're just an anime only, then I'd suggest just skipping to the next video chapter to avoid any spoilers. We do know then that apart from the fact that this story does take place within the 27-year gap after Jinwoo does rewind time, I believe like 10 years, to fight the monarchs like Antares over again, so that everyone who previously died can actually remain alive in the future. It will actually be its very own unique original story, and the only original character I believe we've seen so far was again the one from the portal in the very first trailer, so as of right now there's not too much to go off of, but I imagine it will begin in somewhere like the Demon Castle, having Baron be the very first monarch you take on as Jinwoo, as well as other enemies like Essel, Kaiser, Vulcan and the Cerberus, leaving you to then fight the rest of the monarchs. So there you have it. That is essentially everything you need to know about Solo Leveling Karma and its gameplay and dungeons, etc. I think there's only a small amount of things I didn't really mention, being the blessings that was shown at G-Star, so you can have a look and guess at what some of the upgrades are going to be, and also the fact that the game does look to be completely single player with no co-op or multiplayer of any kind, which to be fair I think does make quite a lot of sense. But be sure to let me know what you think about the game in the comments down below, because I'm very excited to play Solo Leveling Karma when it does fully release, hopefully next year, or we get a beta or something, as I'm also very curious just to see how Netmarble is going to pull this off. But overall, if you did enjoy this video or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!